Okay. Tonight is April 3rd. This is a regular meeting of the Open Space Committee. We are live in person and on Zoom. The Zoom meeting ID is 852-3994-1073, passcode 123722, or you can call in by phone at 646-931-3860. Right now there are no attendees on Zoom.
So that's it. So the first order of our business this evening, before we do introductions, will be to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
We'll call to order.
I'm calling the meeting to order. We're not called to order. We'll rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
The timing is 5:32.
At 5:32? Okay. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we'll start with roll call. We do not have a current chair at this point. We'll get to that in a minute. So we'll start with myself. My name is Jonathan Gale, and I am also the ADA coordinator for the town of Dayton.
And I am Danica Belknap, the clerk of the Open Space Committee.
And I am Robert Gear. I'm a member of the Open Space Committee.
The first order of business this evening is going to be to acknowledge that we have received a resignation from our chair, Daniel Higgins. And I want to emphasize that while Dan was our chair, he did an excellent job guiding us, providing us with materials and keeping us on track. I think I can speak for all three of us who are currently here. We want to thank him for his contribution, and thank you, Dan, for your service to the committee and to the town. We do not currently have another chair as of yet. One member is not with us this evening as of now. That is Peter Karen, a member of the Board of Selectmen, chair of the Board of Selectmen as well. So I think, I thought someone was coming in.
It's the next room over.
Okay. So I think for our first order of business, do we have any next order?
I think we wanted to accept the resignation, formally accept the resignation of Daniel Higgins.
And I'm gonna make a motion, even though we don't have a chair, we do have a quorum because there are three of us. So I will make a motion that, noting what I said earlier, thanking Dan for his service to us and to the town, that we accept the resignation of Daniel Higgins as the chairperson and as a member of the Open Space Committee. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote.
Aye.
And Jonathan Gale, aye. We don't need to say our names because none of our members are on Zoom this evening. If they were, then we would have to say our names individually. So that's something to be aware of too in the future. The next thing on our agenda is, please.
To review and discuss the volunteer application from Leonard Hall.
So we do have Leonard Hull with us this evening.
Welcome, sir.
As many of you know, when you watch this, Mr. Hull will be stepping down as a member of the Board of Selectmen effective this Saturday at 5 o'clock when the election results are announced. First, I want to personally thank Mr. Hull for his friendship and for his service again to the town as a member of the Board of Selectmen, not to mention all of the other committees and positions he's held with the town. He's known for going to a lot of different meetings, speaking up, letting people know what he thinks. He's a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of information for different committees, commissions, and especially for the history of the town. He knows more about the history than most, I think. So I'm thanking you, Lenny, for your service as a member of the Board of Selectmen. With having said that, we have an application for Mr. Hull, which would not take effect as of yet anyway, because he is still a member of the Board of Selectmen, to be a member of Open Space. If Rob or Danya, if one of you could read the information on his application so that the public is aware of what he's indicated.
Yeah, absolutely. I have it printed here. This is Robert Gear. So tonight we've got Mr. Leonard Hull Jr. in front of us of Dayton, Massachusetts, who has applied for a volunteer position within either the Conservation Commission or the Open Spaces Committee. Tonight he sits before the Open Space Committee, welcomed by the committee, and thank you for being here. Thank you for your time. Thank you for making time for us.
Thank you.
His outline relevant experience is his conservation, preservation, and restoration through his Boy Scouts of America experience. His education and training and relevant to the appointment includes his merit badges in conservation and also his management and leadership. He's got a master's degree in management leadership. His prior experience of course includes his role on the Board of Selectmen for the town of Dayton from 2021 until this Saturday, 2024. Thank you again, sir. He's been also a member of the Dayton Rehoboth School Committee from 1990 to 1995, and prior to that served on the Divery Light and Building Committee in 1992. Mr. Hull's special skills and talents pertinent to this position include the liaison for the Conservation Committee while serving on the Board of Selectmen from 2023 to 2024. Continue on those meetings, sir. Thank you again for your time. He's also got a merit badge in conservation, and he's a member of the Nature Conservancy. Mr. Hull feels that he wants to develop conservation educational programming for the community. He wants to work on improving communication between departments, and he wants to improve communication between certain department heads, conservation, town administrator, and I imagine that would include open spaces if you sat with us.
Yes.
Of course. And then of course he added that he'd also like to preserve, protect, and help and acquire conservation land and wetlands, my mistake. Thank you, wetlands, dated March 19, 2024. So that is Mr. Hull's volunteer information for the record. I'd open it up to my fellow members if there's any questions for me that I can clarify, anything that I may have said. I did leave out his home address, his phone number, etc. is on the application and is available through Town Hall if necessary. You can find it there.
Would either of you have any questions first for Mr. Hall?
Just, why do you want to join the committee?
That's excellent, thank you. I did mention in my application,
Lenny, you're probably gonna want the vacuum in this one, you're probably gonna want to move closer or speak up or both.
Come closer to us, sir. Join us.
I didn't mention it in my application, but I also helped to reestablish the Dayton Industrial Development Commission. Dayton is at a crossroads. We, as we speak, I wouldn't say entertain, but there are questions whether Dayton should be a part of the MBTA impact zone. And that, where we haven't met our 40B quota, will really put this town in a position where having to make some decisions about development, open space, conservation. One of the major reasons for the DDIC was that the planning board was dealing with problems. Not their own problems, but the problems of development. And that is taking up all of their time. And they don't have time to do planning. So in one aspect, we have the DDIC, and that aspect is developing commercial and industrial projects. But the one area that's really been left by the wayside is what are we going to do with some of that farmland before the developers get a hold of it. Development is fine if it's planned. And right now, this town doesn't have planners, not a planning board, they have a planning board. Planners, City of Taunton has two, they both pay over $90,000 a year. So I see open space is helping to plan what we're going to do with the potential land that we have available that hasn't been taken up yet by a developer. It's either sitting there or is under tax deed, under the treasurer's office, land that's been taken for taxes. What's going to happen with that land? One of the discussions that we had was the possibility of renting out that land. Because right now, when you take land out of tax title, It's because people couldn't pay their taxes. So now the town owns it. What are you gonna do with that land? But also, you're not generating any tax income. It's just sitting there. How can the town put that land to work? And that's something that this board could take a look at. The other possibility is working with conservation. Unfortunately, the conservation has gotten into several legal battles with developers. The biggest one right now is Strawberry Fields. And a lot of the money that they have available is gone to pay legal costs for their appeal of the Strawberry Fields 40B project. So as a result, if we could refocus and come up with ways of working with them to fund open space land. I kind of use, you may hear me say it at meetings, Bambi land. Land that would be open space for either recreational purposes or for just conservation land. You know, could this board establish through the town accountant an account where donations could go into that would help with purchasing land for open space? You know, we have a couple funding streams that could also help with that. One, and Mr. Gale serves on that, is CPC. So if we could work with CPC, conservation and open space, and funnel monies so that we can make some purchases, even if it was nothing more than to do a legal purchase of some of that tax title land. We can take it off the books so it wouldn't be developed. Those are some of the things I'd like to see accomplished. I know Mr. Cavallo and the Trails Committee, they're doing some incredible work. And I'm just curious if we could be of some assistance to them. Because there are at least one instance of a piece of land that's being contested about continuing the Taunton to Fall River Trail. Could this board be of some help in that? They also have an incredible project that came before CPC last week about a land bridge over the marshes to connect. They have a problem with the trail that runs into marshlands. Can't walk through the marsh. They have a beautiful, the rendition and plan was presented to CPC. A beautiful land bridge, wooden land bridge right over it, which people could walk and look down into the marsh and see the wildlife that was there. Just absolutely stunning. So those are things I think are worth looking into. I'm sure the open space has goals. I'd also like goals, if they don't have a plan, are dreams. And I'm wondering how much, especially where I know open space has had trouble at times getting quorum and members, what are the goals of open space? What strategic plan have you developed to meet those goals? So that's something I'd be curious and offer some input in that area as well. There's a lot that needs to be done, and we need to get ahead of this before the developers dictate what's going to happen. You know, from the development point of view, Mr. Aguirre mentioned it today, that Hunter's Hills, down off Henderson Way, far end of Dyke, has completed the permitting process for an over 55 development of 100 homes. So now we're gonna be starting to build on average 25 a year. That's a sign of things to come. Are we going to be able to totally control that? No, because we haven't met our 40B quota. But we need to get ahead of the developers, because once the developers get involved, then it's hard to pull the land away from them if they've already made deposits or started negotiations.
Well, it's just cost money at that point, yeah.
You know, I am aware of a large farm on Williams Street that right now the town has first option to, can open space help make that happen? You know, because it was farmland, prime development, prime open space conservation land, park and recreation land. Some of that may involve, because Mr. Mullen is straight out, may involve, if anyone is interested, reaching out to people that we know, owners of land, especially people that are elderly, quickly to make the money they need to pay to get rid of a tax issue and have money for retirement, or sell off 10 acres, 15 acres of land. And who are they gonna sell it to? They sell it to a developer, more homes, that's gonna impact our schools. Until we meet our 40B quota, we need to get ahead of that. The other thing, and I don't know how much work Open Space has done with Lizette Gonzalez and Serpent. If you haven't, you want them on board. They were huge help for DDIC.
I work at Serpent, by the way.
Yes,
I work
Lizette
at
is awesome. And what it's cost the town for the amount of, the bang for the buck that we received from that woman, it is incredible. Her planning, her presentations, her advocacy to the public is top notch. We need somebody with that criteria, with that expertise. And also to give us some guidance, because I don't know your background. I don't have a lot of background in formal urban planning. But Lizette has been a huge resource. The other one that's also, other group that's willing to be of some assistance is the Taunton Area Chamber of Commerce. They're not so much the technical expertise as they are the networking expertise. They know the people that we should be in contact with, the experts. And they have the phone numbers and they will help us. And Jonathan Gagat, who serves on DDIC, is a representative of that group. So we can always reach out to Jonathan and say, Jonathan, we're looking at doing this. Who do you know that can help us? And then obviously the other piece is who will help us for next to nothing, because we don't have a lot of money for urban planning. So it has to take, relies on volunteers such as us. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that.
My pleasure.
So I had a few questions for Mr. Hall, but I think he's answered them. Your answer was pretty encompassing. My question was when Robert was reading the application, he noted that are you submitting the application to both open space and conservation? To
Yes.
be on both
Yes.
potentially? Okay.
Yes, and that can be an advantage. I don't see that as being a disadvantage because there's no conflicting nights. I am not going on conservation as a regular member. I'm going on as an associate member.
So you step in, right?
Well, right now,
How does that work?
no. Associate members go and learn, and if they should take it to the next level, that's what we would do. Because they're in the same situation as the planning board. They're supposed to be doing regulations, and they do that, and they do a lot, like the planning board. But their other piece, they're supposed to be acquiring open space conservation land. And they have money that's funneled to them through taxes and also through grants that's supposed to be used for that. But their bylaw allows them the flexibility to use it because they don't have legal services per se. They don't have legal as a budget item. So for them, if they have a legal matter, they have to go through the Board of Selectmen. And we had some litigation issues this year that didn't give us the opportunity to be able to give them money. So they reached into that account, $100,000, to use in their appeal of the Strawberry Field decision, the 40B housing off of Somerset Avenue. That is in court right now. So that 100,000, unfortunately, it could have been used to purchase conservation land. It could have gone to purchase that land up on William Street, or some of the other land that, one of the problems Paul, Reynolds has is he's taken some land out of tax title that has no use. For people, it was wetlands. So the town just got it. This
So,
way here would be designated and could be used for conservation and possibly at a price that would be, negotiated with Paul and whatever board would wanna make that purchase. So what I'm hoping with conservation is to be able to reach out to some of the people who may have conservation land that may, for the right price, or even bequeath it to the town upon their passing.
Exactly.
so for the purposes of our meeting tonight, and I'm gonna make a suggestion first and get the opinion of the other two members. Since we formally don't have a chair yet, and that wasn't on our agenda, so we can't formally recommend or vote for a chair until our next meeting to put that, as long as assuming that's on the agenda.
It is on our
Is
agenda,
it?
but we wanna wait for when all the members are here.
Exactly, because we want Peter to be here.
Yeah.
What I'm suggesting is, I think because we have a quorum, at least, I would recommend that we take a vote for Mr. Hull. And then we submit that recommendation, if it's in the affirmative, to the Board of Selectmen, so that they can interview Mr. Hull and get that on their agenda. And the reason I say that is because if we don't do that, then we can't vote on Mr. Hull until our May meeting. And then Mr. Hull would not be back as a member until our June meeting. Because it would still have to go in front of the Board of Selectmen then. So I don't know because we have a quorum, I don't think there was anything precluding us from making a motion this evening, either way, and taking a vote on that. And then asking the clerk to notify the Board of Selectmen's office of our decision. And then submit that decision along with his application, if we go that way, to the Board of Selectmen to be added to their next agenda.
I agree.
Yeah, agreed.
So, having said that, if we're all in agreement on that, I, Jonathan Gale, would then entertain or make a motion that we appoint or offer Leonard Hull the position as a member at large to the Open Space Committee pending consideration and approval by the Board of Selectmen.
Like that.
And Robert seconded it. Is there any discussion on that? As the acting person for tonight only, I hear no discussion, so I will call for a vote. Robert,
Aye, Robert.
Tanya,
Aye.
and Jonathan, who doesn't need to step down from anything, because I'm not a chair, is also an aye.
Thank you
So,
very much.
I would ask the clerk, Tanya, to send his application back to the Board of Selectmen's office with a recommendation that we have approved, and ask him to be placed on their next agenda for consideration as a member
The
of the
meeting
Open
is
Space.
the 9th, so ideally it should be in by Monday.
To get it on that agenda, correct?
for the
Yes,
the
yes,
meeting.
and they're not open on Friday, remember that, so that's really
So that's
tomorrow
like
or
tomorrow.
Monday.
Somebody has to get
Yeah.
it on hold tomorrow.
You can send it,
We can just
you can
email
send
it.
an email.
I can
you can send
email it as soon as I get home tonight.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you,
Um,
thank you very much.
You're welcome, hopefully you'll be approved, and I think by what he's already said, I think all three of us would agree. You know, you have a lot of great ideas, a lot of insight, and you're a wealth of knowledge and information, especially for people to contact and resource. I think the three of us will learn a lot about who to reach out to from you, as well as
Yeah,
different
absolutely.
parcels in town and people who own the land and the background of those individuals, things like that too, so.
Do you have policies and bylaws and a little bit of background?
On the committee itself.
Right, like a form.
I mean, I think the only thing Dan shared with me was the 2021-2028 open spaces recreational plan, like that's the document that, we had to submit. So to answer your question, there is a plan,
Okay,
but I think that we need to put action behind that plan. So it's not just a dream, like you said. Because the dream exists, but we just need to put the energy behind it now.
And I,
could you give me a copy of that? Absolutely, okay.
Yeah,
and that's
It doesn't have to be today.
no, that's a public plan anyway, so it's not.
Yeah, it's on the town website.
And actually,
Oh, is it?
you saw that plan as a member of the Board of Selectmen, that was presented to you.
Right, yeah.
So you do have it in your archive somewhere from a few months ago too.
Okay.
And then I think as far as bylaws, you were asking about bylaws
Oh,
and
I have
stuff,
policy.
and policy and procedure for this board. I know I've only been on it for less than 6 months, I haven't seen it formally. I don't know if either of you have.
This
This-
committee only just got I mean, there was a committee and it kind of was inactive for a while.
Exactly,
And we just started meeting in October. So we drafted like a mission statement that we adopted, but that's all we have, it's just like a very brief mission statement. But what you were saying about like a strategic plan, I think that's a good next step for us to work on as a committee.
and I think that's the direction we wanted to go in before
Yeah.
things started changing, the three of us along with Peter as well, and Dan were starting to talk about a strategic plan, and
Yeah.
we had invited a couple of people to come and, talk and so forth and explain the plan that was currently out there. We were gonna start to reach out to other committees, and we had talked about bringing somebody from open space together along with somebody from conservation and somebody from CPC, and kind of looking at putting the subcommittee together to look at options and plans. So am I missing anything there?
I think you could.
I think that's kind of where that was at, so, yeah, I think between the three of us, we can get you everything you're looking for one way or another.
Okay, okay, good.
Once the meeting happens on the 9th. Sounds good, great. And what's our next,
So it's 6:00, when did you say you have until?
that's probably my text saying I'm here, but I have a couple more minutes.
Well, so the next thing was to discuss the open space plan, but why don't we save that for next time and we can send you the link, Leonard, and if everyone has a chance to kind of review it before next meeting, then we can have an informed discussion and start thinking about like strategic. So we did start going through, there's an action plan, I have a paper copy here. But there's an action plan at the end of the open space plan that we had started going through a couple meetings ago, just to look at like what of the recommendations of the previous plan, what had been accomplished and what hadn't been accomplished and what we might be able to do. So maybe we pick up from there.
Good.
Yeah, and just continue going through that list for next time, if that sounds good to everyone.
Yeah, I agree.
Sounds good to me, I mean, I think I think once you look at it with us, you'll be able to give us a lot of input and a lot of background that the plan doesn't explain as well. So I think that's a good idea. So we actually, when you think about it already, we are fairly full agenda for our next meeting. Between chair
Yeah.
and hopefully welcoming Mr. Hull and going over the action plan. And I will try to look at in the meantime and speak to town hall and see if there were old bylaws, even though we have our mission statement. And if there were old
Send it to your
bylaws
email, your iCloud account.
Great,
Yeah,
thank you very much.
that we need to look at as well, at least have, so we can review them and discuss whether or not anything needs to be changed or revised on any of that potentially too.
Now, you only meet once a month?
Yes,
Currently, yeah.
Yeah, the first Wednesday
Yeah.
of every month.
Is that often enough? for what we're trying to achieve. I mean, I don't wanna try and get anybody's schedule like twice a month, but while we put a plan together for action, do you think it's more necessary to are we allowed to have conversations off on the side through email about what we want to bring to this meeting and present to the
That it's a
public?
little,
Dicey, doesn't it?
because open meeting law,
Yeah,
yeah, that you gotta be a little careful about,
that makes sense.
but,
You can share ideas and thoughts, there are ways to do it. We could establish, for example, a Dropbox account. I don't know if we have one yet or not, where we could share ideas and thoughts, for example, and go back and forth that way in general terms.
Why drop, is that like a public Dropbox?
We can
Like, why
make-
is that the way you can do it?
Well, it's a way that things are in writing and there's a record of it, because
Yeah.
there's, you know, documents putting back and forth in there.
So you give like Leanne access to that and it becomes
Yes,
public record,
if
is that how
Yeah,
you get
just
across
in
that,
in
that
case
board?
something ever,
Yes, yeah, so that if we're putting documents, taking it out, if the three of us are working on something and revising it as the month goes on, and making changes, things like that, similar to doing something almost in OneDrive. Same concept.
and the beauty of doing that, unfortunately, in this day and age, people are using FOIA requests as a way of striking back at people if they're angry, either at them personally or at a board. And by doing what Jonathan's accessing, it is so much easier to go to the cloud and pull. One person can do that, pull all the emails up on that specific topic, rather than saying each one of us has to go through our phones and
Yeah,
make copies of that. It's a nightmare.
To answer your question about how often we should meet.
Mhm.
I'll be honest, my thought is that if we're really serious about trying to get some things done, and especially if we wanna bring in other committees and other voices over time, I think after our next meeting or so, maybe even once a month is not gonna do it. 12 times a year for what we want to accomplish is not a lot when you come right down to it. I don't know if you wanna
It
go.
depends on like what, I mean, we can discuss it next meeting
Yeah, I think we
and
should.
like what we're doing, and maybe we can kind of address it as
As needed.
we go, but we might be able to do work like in between meetings, like as you were saying, some of it might be drafting documents or
Or if we formed a subcommittee,
something.
we could have formed a subcommittee with 2 out of 4, 2 out of 5, 3 out of 4, 3 out of 5 on a subcommittee. And subcommittees can work offline.
Right.
And then bring it so that's another way not to get around it, but to get work accomplished in between our monthly meetings too. So if the subcommittee were
2 people, because
You
3
know,
would be a quorum.
whomever, you know, whether it's you, Rob, me, Leonard, whatever it is,
Mhm.
we can work on something to bring it back for presentation at the next meeting too.
You could have several subcommittees too. I
So,
mean,
yeah, because the
Five.
plan itself is what, 9 different sections, so you can
Yeah.
have 9 subcommittees in theory, right?
yeah, and you could also have one of us, you know, designated as a liaison to another committee. So if we're going to that other committee's meeting during the month, we're working with them as well and sharing and bringing back and putting things together. So there are ways to make this work in accordance with the regulations and public meeting regulations and laws we have to follow. Without feeling stressed. I guess it's
We're just trying to, I mean, I know we all have the town in our best interest, and that's ultimately what we're trying to achieve. There's no real gain in this committee.
No.
We don't sign the checks in this department, so.
No, but we don't sign checks, I think we do have if we want to, we have an opportunity to have a large voice in what shapes the land use space of the town for the future.
Well, I think that's where Dan was trying to push us when I was visiting the meetings in December, and then January was, maybe it was January, February was him trying to get, you know, like, let's start to define what this committee wants to include in our,
Yeah.
for lack of better terms, purpose.
right? There are a lot of people in the community that are worried. They want to keep the rural character that exists.
Mhm.
They're afraid of what developers are going to do,
Right, please.
and how we can make that work. To help that goal of remaining Dayton as a rural community. That'd be quite an accomplishment.
I think that was part of our mission statement,
Yes, it was,
purpose.
it was. Do you have our mission statement there?
Would you like me to read it?
I'm sorry?
Would you like me to read it?
Yeah, if you would, that way Mr. Hull can hear it too. I mean, I remember it because, and I have it on my computer, but Mr. Hull can hear it.
The purpose of the Open Space Committee is to identify and make recommendations regarding land that is important to residents of the town of Dayton as open space in order to preserve our rural character, protect water resources and wildlife habitat, and provide recreational opportunities.
That's it, in a nutshell, and that's what you were talking about. So, I think we've met that burden of Mr. Hull's already.
Now, have you met with recreation at all, Kevin, in particular?
Not yet. He did join one of our
He came to the
meetings.
January meeting, we should invite him back, we should invite him back,
Yeah.
really. He's-
When we were talking about the open space bylaw
Yeah,
updates,
exactly. We should-
he joined our meeting, yeah. But I think one of the things, I think you mentioned this already, Jonathan, but one of the things we talked about doing in a previous meeting was just kind of meeting with all the different boards
Sure.
and talking with them about how we can assist them and.
Yeah, and I think by the time we did it all separately, it would take a couple of months, and we may wanna consider, after we get through this other business next month, for example, at our April meeting, inviting the other boards to send a representative and having kind of a powwow, if you will.
Yeah.
Using our meeting for a powwow of how we can all work collectively together. And that way we can maybe put some ideas together before we get in too far into the spring and the summer. For things to be visited and worked on.
Right.
The fall's a good time to come back with some real proposals. So there's an opportunity there. So do we have anything else for this evening?
Just to set the next meeting.
Oh, we need to approve the minutes.
Minutes.
Oh,
Yes.
minutes, thank you, yeah, so, yeah, the minutes for October 4th, 2023, November 1st, 2023, and December 6th, that should say 2023. But do we have to do them one at a time, or can we do all three?
I think we can do it collectively.
Yeah,
Assuming there are no changes, we could do it collectively.
yeah,
Oh,
did everyone have a chance to review?
Although, wait a minute,
Yes.
Robert, when were you officially sworn in?
In January, so
Okay,
February was my first month.
All right, so all three were prior to you.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah, you
So
were.
then we cannot approve them.
Because we don't have a quorum of people who were,
Okay,
so
Correct.
yeah, and Peter's not here, so we can
Correct,
remove.
sorry about that.
That's okay.
time.
I wish we could, but yeah, unfortunately, no, so we'll have to table them and keep them holding until next time when Peter's here. Or we have a quorum, hopefully. If Peter's not here next time, we may have to make a motion. I'll look into see what we can do
Okay,
for prior meetings. And hopefully, as I said, Peter will be here.
okay, yeah.
So, do we have anything else for other new business that anybody wants to bring up, or?
nothing, and it doesn't appear that anybody's
Okay,
on the call for public input, so we can probably skip past
Okay.
that.
all right, so there's no public input this evening. It is now, what, 6:03, 6:04?
Do you wanna set the next meeting
Something like
date
that,
first?
yes, yep. Our next meeting date would be the first Wednesday in May, which would be what, May 8th?
May 1st.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, wow,
That's
that's
good.
soon. Actually, that's probably better, it's sooner than later. So yeah, May 1st,
5:30.
5:30, usual time, I don't have
Yeah.
anything
Here in this building?
that I would have to be here for, does that work for you?
Yes.
Mr. Hall, if you're able to be here,
Yes.
and for the two of you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and hopefully for Mr. Karen as well. So our next meeting will be set for May 1st at 5:30 PM prime time, and we will make sure that we do have access to get in this time.
Do we have a motion for that?
No, not to set our meeting date,
Okay.
because that's something that we would do automatically for knowing it's the first Wednesday of the month, so that doesn't require a motion.
Okay.
But what does require a motion is a motion to adjourn
Okay,
I'd like to make a motion.
it's 6:11.
at 6:11 PM.
Robert, motion to adjourn.
Robert's making a motion to adjourn, do we have a second?
Second?
Second by Danielle. And we'll we don't have to, but we'll do a roll call vote just to be safe. Robert?
Aye.
Aye.
And Jonathan stepping down as temporary chair for the 5 minutes? Aye. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. So you went,
And that's it.
Mhm.
And now I've gotta go home and hold another meeting.
Thank you.